In a prison known as the Vertical Self-Management Center, Goring wakes up in a concrete cell with a number 48 on its wall. There's nothing but a bed and a sink for him to use, and a hole in the middle of the floor, which his cellmate Trimagasi calls the pit. There are many floors like theirs, all of them with 2 prisoners using fake names assigned by the management. Every day, food is lowered on a platform through the hole, and you have 2 minutes to eat as much as possible before it leaves to a lower floor. The lower you are, the fewer chances you have of eating anything. At the end of every month, prisoners are shuffled and sent to different floors. When Goring sees the platform at first, he decides not to eat because he isn't hungry and he'd rather leave food for the lower levels. After eating as much as he can, Trimagus spits on the table, knowing people above them probably do the same. Goring decides to keep an apple for later time, but after the platform leaves, the cell begins to feel super hot. It turns out that hiding food is forbidden, so Goring has to throw the apple or they'll burn to death. This makes Goring think about the interview he had before entering the place, when he had to sign a paper accepting the fact he can't free out until the agreed period is done. Each prisoner has a choice to bring one item with them, and Goring chose to bring a copy of Don Quixote. Goring came here voluntarily. He'll stay 6 months in exchange for an accredited diploma. The next day, Goring didn't eat again when the platform comes, and Trimagasi thinks floor 48 is wasted on him. Goring asks Trimagasi for his story, and Trimagasi explains. It all started with a television ad. He bought an extraordinary knife that he saw on TV, but only a few days later they released a new ad promoting an even better knife. This made him so angry that he took the TV and threw it out the window, killing a guy that was passing by. Trimagasi was given a choice between psychiatric hospital and here. So here he is. The lowest he's gone was 132. Thus he knows there are more floors than that because he could see them below. No leftover food reaches the lower levels, and a month down there isn't that bad. The problem is when you get 2 lower levels in a row. Goring is afraid of this possibility and tries to talk to the people on the other floors to ask them to share their food, but he's ignored. Trimagasi replies by pissing into the lower floor. He also reveals that the item he chose to bring with him is the knife he bought from TV. The next time the platform comes by, Goring finally begins to eat. He also sees a person from the upper levels fall through the hole, and Trimagasi says this is very common, but nobody cares about it. Trimagasi tells Goring about all the floors he's been on and mentions they'll be together next month. Goring realizes that cellmates are kept together when they're shuffled and finally only understands Trimagasi at his previous cellmate when he was on the lower floors. When the platform comes down again, Miharu is sitting on it. Goring worries about her because he notices she's injured, but Trimagasi tells him to ignore her. Miharu comes down the hole once a month to look for her missing kid. She also ends every cellmate she gets in order to have more chances to be paired with her kid the following month. The guy they saw falling was probably her victim. Trimagasi then explains that unlike her, he never tried to end anyone. He just ate the body that fell on his floor. When the platform goes to the next level, the prisoners try to take advantage of Miharu. Goring yells at them to leave her alone, but it isn't necessary. Miharu just ends them and returns to the platform. When the month reaches its end, the prisoners are put to sleep with gas and shuffled around. When Goring wakes up, he finds himself tied to his bed on floor 171. Trimagasi
explains he tied Goring up because he's younger and stronger, so Trimagasi has to protect himself from him. Shouting and screaming can be heard from the other floors that indicate people reacting to their new levels, and when the platform comes, there's not even a crumb left. After 8 days, Trimagasi announces it's finally time for him to get some food. Ignoring Goring's beg for mercy, Trimagasi uses his knife to get some meat from Goring's thigh. But before he can eat it, the platform arrives, bringing Miharu with it. Miharu remembers how much Goring worried about her and jumps on Trimagasi, attacking him with his own knife. Then she frees Goring and hands him the knife so he can use it to finish Trimagasi off. Goring passes out after that, and he wakes up later to find himself on the bed. Miharu has bandaged his leg with a piece of bedcloth and she's now eating Trimagasi. She gives some meat to Goring, who accepts after some hesitation. She also gives him some water before leaving on the platform. Without a word, Days pass and Trimagasi's body begins to rotan smell, giving Goring the chance to eat worms too. Goring also begins hallucinating, seeing Trimagasi's ghost judge him as he eats. At the end of the month, gas and bad smell takes over the cell and Goring dreams of being with a woman again, while Miharu watches. When he wakes up, he discovers that the one licking him is a dog. To Goring's shock, his new cellmate is Amogiri, the woman that did his interview when he volunteered to enter this prison. The dog is the only item she chose to bring with her, and they're now on level 33. Goring remembers the day of the interview and how Amogiri made scary pauses between questions. In the present, Amogiri explains she volunteered as Goring did, and that she didn't know people died here. As far as she knows, there are 200 levels, and when Goring explains there isn't enough food for all the people here, Amogiri points out that the amount of food would be fine if people only ate what they needed. Something that fosters a spontaneous sense of solidarity needs to happen. But Goring thought the idea ridiculous. He does wonder if change could be achieved by the death of a child, but Amogiri sure that company rules doesn't accept under 16 years old. When the platform brings them food, Amogiri only eats what she needs, and after feeding her dog, she begins preparing 2 rations of food. Once the platform reaches the lower level, Amogiri tries to tell the prisoners to eat the rations she prepared and make 2 more for the next level to pass on the message. Obviously, she is completely ignored, and Goring points out that the administration doesn't actually want solidarity to happen. Amogiri hates that Goring assume all administration is bad because she worked for them without issues, but Goring replies that being a former worker gave her the privilege of choosing her cellmate. Amogiri doesn't give up and keeps on trying to ration the food each day, but she continues to not followed by the lower levels. 2 weeks later, Goring finally gets annoyed of all her yelling and lectured the people that if they don't follow Amogiri's instructions, he'll poop himself on the food every day and they'll have to eat poop. The threat works and the prisoners start passing the messages to the lower levels. In the meantime, the platform comes down with an unconscious Miharu on it. Goring and Amogiri put her on a bed and take care of her while the dog steals some food. When the platform leaves, the cell begins feeling super cold, and Goring has to chase the dog to take back the food he stole before their end for breaking the rules. In the evening, Goring leaves the bed to Miharu and laid on the floor, only to wake up to find the girls fighting. It turns out Miharu ended the dog to eat it. The next day, Miharu leaves on the platform. Goring tells Amogiri about Miharu's search for her kid, but Amogiri explains Miharu came alone. 10 months ago, she was an actress with no family that volunteered to come. Just like Goring, Amogiri sent people down here without knowing how bad it was, and she's been fighting cancer for 3 years. When she discovered she lost that fight, she volunteered to come because she thought she could make a difference, but she doesn't care anymore. On their last day on floor 33, Goring tries to make Amogiri eat something because they may not have food tomorrow, but Amogiri is too sad to leave the bed. The next morning, Goring wakes up to discover he's on floor 202. Meaning there are more levels than Amogiri knew about. Such revelation was too much for Amogiri to handle and used her bedsheets to end things for herself. At that moment, Trimagasi's hallucination appears again, wondering if Goring will eat his new friend. This time he's joined by Amogiri and her dog, who insists he should eat her body. Goring tries his best to ignore their constant noises, and he tries to keep himself busy with other things. He tricks his stomach by eating papers of his book, and he takes up plate shard to start counting the days on the wall. Eventually the hunger becomes too much, though, and Goring finally begins feeding on Amogiri, while Trimagasi guides him on where to cut. Sometimes later, the next shuffle comes and Goring is happy to discover he's on floor 6. The person on the other bed is Miru, who comes after him with a knife, but this turns out to be just a dream. Goring's new cellmate is actually Baharat, whose only chosen item was a rope. Baharat is very excited because he thinks he can climb all the way to the top from their cell, and he asks the people on level 5 to help him. The prisoners above teases him before accepting to grab the rope, but when Baharat starts to climb, the other prisoner lowers her pants and defecates on Baharat's face. Shocked and disgusted, Baharat lets go of the rope and falls down. Goring catches him just in time, but the rope is lost in the hole. When the platform comes, they have to eat while listening to the prisoners on level 5 get frisky. As time passes, the hallucinations of Trimagasi and Amogiri show up again. Trimagasi says Goring is doing great because he only has 1 more month to go free, and Amogiri reminds him that change never happens spontaneously. This inspires Goring to think of a big plan, and he asks Baharat for help.
Part 11 up next.
They should jump on the platform with whatever weapon they can find and make sure people rush on the food so that everyone can eat. Goring did the calculation when he was on floor 202, and judging by the time the platform takes to move, he thinks there are around 250 levels, which should be doable. Baharat steps to work together, and they break a bed to use its pieces of metal like weapons. The two of them jump on the platform and go to level 7, where Goreg points out they shouldn't allow the prisoners to grab anything these people ate yesterday and will eat tomorrow for sure, so they should only start handing out food after level 50, which are the people having trouble. Baharat hesitates because these prisoners are his friends that helped him climb up some weeks before. But as soon as the old man reacts furiously, Baharat sees Goring's point and begins helping him keep everyone away. The pair keeps going down while threatening people to keep the food untouched. After a few more floors, Baharat is shocked to come across Brambang, an old wise man that Baharat respects. Brambang approves of what the boys are trying to do, but he points out that the administration doesn't have a conscience and won't care if they succeed. But perhaps the workers on level Sarah will, so they need a symbol. Baharat and Goring choose the panna cotta because it's a very luxurious dish and will cause quite an impression if it arrives untouched to the bottom. The mission continues as they keep going down, keeping the panna cotta safe while keeping people away with threats. Once they reach level 50, Baharat and Goring begin handing out rations of food and people are extremely thankful. On level 97, they find a sick old man and a mentally disabled boy. Goring tries to feed the old man some soup, but the boy tells them not to bother because he'll end the old man later anyway to be his food. The next level only has a body on it, and Goring guesses this is where Miharu woke up. The platform doesn't stop there because there aren't any alive there, which means Goring's calculations were wrong and there are more than 250 floors. On the next floor, they find two men attacking Miharu. One of them has a sword and the other is big and burly, so when Goring and Baharat jump in to help the girl, it is extremely hard to defend themselves. Baharat manages to get his guy first, and then he helps Goring end the big man. But unfortunately it's too late for Miharu, who is already gone. Goring wants to mourn her, but Baharat drags him back on the platform before it leaves them behind. The two of them keep going down and handing out food to the prisoners they see, although many floors only have dead bodies on them. Eventually the platform stops at level 333, which seems to be the last one. At first they think it's empty, but there's actually someone hiding under the bed. It's Molly, the missing child. Baharat and Goring approach the kid and as soon as they leave the platform, it starts going down again. Goring asks Baharat to throw the panna cotta into the hole, but Baharat refuses. To their surprise, the room doesn't get hot or cold to punish them, and after lots of hesitation, Bertie gives the panna cotta to Molly. The three of them stay on that floor and Goring keeps being haunted by Trimagasi, and now Miharu as well. Suddenly Baharat agrees with the ghosts, telling Goring that the girl is the message. And when Goring wakes up, he discovers Baharat already gone, because of his bleeding injuries. The next time the platform comes, Goring brings Molly with him, and they're lowered into floor 0, which is completely dark and empty. Trimagasi appears to tell Goring to come off the platform because he isn't part of the message, and together they watch the platform go up with Molly, hoping that she will show the abusers above the reality of the situation.